So there are 235 million people playing games every month on Facebook. That's roughly 1 in 4 Facebook users play games every month. And this number is growing. It's grown 8.4% in this year alone. So not only is Facebook growing really strong, but games on Facebook is growing along with it too. And it's not just 1 or 2, blockbuster games at the top that take all these people. Over 130 games, as of today, on Facebook have 1 million or more players monthly. So this is a huge global ecosystem of gamers, and that's why Russian developers are already on board, starting to take advantage of this ecosystem, get great growth, and basically generate great profit. Songpop. Does anyone in here play Songpop? Know it? Hands? Okay, guess it's not got here yet. But Songpop is a music guessing game. You get played a few seconds of music, and you have to guess which song it is. And with no advertising spend, no big budget behind them, they've got to 9.7 million users in 3 months. And that's just with the power of Facebook, just by leveraging some of the technologies you've seen today. One of the partners I work with, they're in Sweden, called King, and they've been around a while and they've produced some really good games, but they came onto Facebook about a year ago now, and they've become already the number 2 developer on Facebook. So it's amazing how quick you can get incredible growth if you use our platform. Okay, so what are the technologies specifically that we use with games? I want to draw your attention to these 3 today. We have requests and notifications. These are a one-to-one directed communication between 2 players in your game. So that's me as a player talking to one of you. And we use these in various ways, for challenging, for maybe bragging, showing off in the game, or for taking turns back and forth. We then have the feed. This is a broadcast mechanism. So this is me publishing on my timeline, and it shows up in my friends' news feeds. And we use this basically for showing off or doing big challenges in games. So you can show all your friends just how good you are in a game. And then we use the Open Graph massively with games as well. You've heard a lot about the Open Graph today, but there's 1 or 2 specific things with games I'd like to draw your attention to, because it's really awesome what you can achieve. Okay, so let's dive in and talk about requests and notifications. As I mentioned, requests are sent from one player in your game to another. And we do this through the request dialog. You can see on the screen it's 4 short lines of JavaScript to spawn this dialog. Put it in your game, user clicks a button, execute that code, and this box pops up. If you add no extra parameters, this will show you a list of your friends that you tend to interact with the most. These are the people that I tend to interact with. It's also really simple on mobile as well. It's a few more lines of code here, but it's basically the same thing. Create a dictionary of key-value pairs. The important one here is the message, and it says, come join me in this game. You then call the dialog method on the Facebook object, which is the core object of our iOS SDK, which Tom demonstrated earlier. And the box pops up in exactly the same way. Looks the same, acts the same, everything works the same on mobile. And this is an iOS demo, but the Android demo is not much, it's the same amount of code. It's really simple on Android too. So that's how quick and easy it is to send. What does it look like when you receive a request? Well, on Facebook.com, it shows up in a few places. Number 1, in the notification jewel, that's the globe icon at the top, show up in your list of notifications at the top. It will show up on the left-hand column as a bookmark, and that number will increase as more requests come in. And in real time, it shows up as an alert in the bottom left. So if someone is looking at Facebook Live, it will show up, allow them to interact with that request straight away. On mobile, it's even more prominent. You receive a push notification, so your phone will buzz in your pocket, pull it out, there it is. You swipe the notification, and you'll be launched into the Facebook app, where again it will show up in the notification jewel. And then you hit that button, and you get taken into one of 2 places. If you have the app installed, you get taken straight into that app with the deep linking technology that Tom talked about. But the important thing to think about is if that user doesn't have the app, we direct them straight to the native app store, either Google Play or the iOS App Store. And I just want to show you this video. So there's 2 phones here. The user on the right is using this app called Bonsai. And he's going to invite his friend to use the app using a request. So he's going to select his friend from the list of friends that shows up. In this case, it's a guy called Dave. Hits Dave's name, and the request dialog pops up using that code that I showed you a second ago. He hits send, and a few seconds later, Dave receives a push notification. Now we know his password, and we launch the Facebook app. A few seconds later, Facebook updates with the request at the top. He hits the request, but because he doesn't have the app installed, he's taken straight to the native app store. And, boom, hits install, and now it's downloading to his phone. And this Bonsai app already has a new user. And if you think about the typical flow when you're sharing apps between friends, you tell them the name, maybe they don't know the spelling, maybe they struggle to find it. It can be a bit of a tedious process. This makes it so much more simple. So he's already got the app downloaded and installed and launched, and now he's logging in with Facebook. He's granting the permissions that you heard Simon talk about earlier, and boom, there he is, social context. His friends' pictures have shown up, and he's a fully engaged new user. So in about a minute that took, you have a new user into this app, fully acquired, and the flow is complete. And this is great for acquiring new users into your games. So you saw there that request was sent by one person directly to another. We skipped that friend selector dialog that I talked about at the start. There are a number of other filters that we can apply to the request dialog that allow different behavior with the dialog. The first one here, and an important one, is this app non-users filter. What this does is it will take away all the users that have already used the app and just leave in the dialog those that haven't. So if you're inviting new users into your game, this is a really great way of just showing the players that are new to the app. Another common one that we see in games, often in games you tend to interact with the same people time and again. Maybe if you're in a tournament with them, or you're part of a clan or a guild or a team. And so you can specify the IDs of people that you play with, so their names will appear prominently at the top of that box. And, as you saw on the video, we have this concept of directed requests. This is skipping the friend selector and just sending a message through to one person. It's really simple. You just put the two parameter in with that guy's username, the guy or girl's username, user ID, and there it is, the box ready to go. And once again, this is the same ease of simplicity on mobile. One more parameter, launches the same box, and you can send. Now, if you think about a game when you're going back and forth between two people, maybe it's Scrabble or chess or a game of that nature where it's two people playing back and forth, you don't want to have to pop this box up every single time they send a message saying it's now your turn. It's a bit slow and a bit tedious if you see the same box time and again. So we have this technology called frictionless requests, and it's one line to enable it. In the JavaScript SDK, you just enable it when you initialize the SDK. And on mobile, it's one extra line on the app delegate, the core Facebook object. And what it does is it adds this extra checkbox to the request dialog that just basically says, once I've sent a request through this UI one time, the next time you do it, don't show me any UI, make it frictionless, and just send the request automatically. And this works really well for leveraging the scenario when you're going back and forth between two people. OK, so that's the theory. Let's try it out. Can I have the demo laptop? Wow, that's quick. Getting good. OK, so here I am in Xcode, and I'm not going to go through the login flow exactly that you've seen Tom do. I'm just going to dive into requests. So if I run this, OK, so this is my game Friend Smash, and I'm going to show you the game, and then I'm going to send a request to a new player. This is iOS 6, and we have a slightly different login flow now, which is even better and simpler than the one Tom demonstrated. So if I hit login, rather than doing that app switching that we did before in iOS 5, it now simply pops up a box which says, this game would like access to my basic profile and my list of friends. I hit OK, and immediately it downloads my profile picture. This is a test user. I'm not actually a cat, just to be clear, and allows me to play the game. So I'm going to play this game, and what will happen is, it's like the game Fruit Ninja, if any of you have played it. So my friends are going to pop up onto the screen. I have to click them, tap them, and I have to avoid hitting celebrities. So let's give it a go. OK, so I'm smashing my friend Tom, as you've seen. So click him a few times. And oh, I hit Arnie, and the game's over. And now it's asking me to write to the graph, because I actually have open graph integration in this game, and this is going to post my score to the graph. And we'll talk about the scores API in a minute. Anyway, this button challenge will then launch this code here, which is to send a request. So what I'm going to do is create a mutable dictionary of parameters. And the only important parameter here is this message. And I'm going to say, I just smashed X number of friends, my score. Can you beat it? And then I'm going to spawn the dialog. So hit the button, dialog is spawned. And then here we go with my friend selector. Now, if it's possible, can I have my phone on the side screens, please? So I'm going to send one to myself. This is my phone that's plugged in. That is not the wrong button. That's not the right button, is it? There we go. Hit send. I think I am up. It's just... Wait a few seconds, and hopefully, if Apple play along, it's not it's on. It's locked here. But I'm not getting it anyway. Okay, we'll try that one more time. Send one to me. Hit send. Boom. 2 seconds later, push notification received on my phone. If I swipe to unlock it, now you all know my password. Launches the Facebook app. A notification shows up. And then if I tap this, I'll either go into the native app or to the App Store. I don't actually have the app installed here, and it's not released because it's just a sample app. But you get the idea. Cool. So I also mentioned that you add this to parameter, and we skip the friend selector altogether. Let's do that. So I'm going to send one straight to me now. Play another round of the game. This time it's Connor. It's quite hard playing this game with a trackpad. You're supposed to be tapping. Okay. Now if I challenge, it skips the friend selector altogether. My name is already populated. Hit send. And then I've received another push straight away. Really, really simple. A few seconds, and I've acquired a new user. Brilliant. Can I go back to the slides? Slides, please. Okay, so you saw how easy that was. But that was quite a contrived example. But we see really great examples of this happening in really brilliant games. In Angry Birds Friends, they implement this. There's this concept when I beat a friend's score, you see this brag button appear on the right. So I can brag, I can show off to them and say, hey, I beat your score. Do you think you can do better than me? So here I've beaten my friend Andreas, and so I get to hit this brag button next to his name. I hit it, and the request dialog pops up in the same way. Again, it's to Andreas, and it has the frictionless request thing turned on that we mentioned. If I hit send request, then he's immediately going to see a notification much like this one. Your friend sent you a request in Angry Birds Friends. If he clicks that, he'll be taken straight to that level within Angry Birds. So he can immediately challenge me on that level that I just played. And this is using the deep linking stuff that Tom told you about. So it doesn't just launch the game's home screen, it goes right to the content so he can challenge me back straight away. And this creates a really great loop of bringing players back into the game if they haven't played for a while. Okay, so as I said, requests are always sent from one player to another, and therefore they're always sent through a dialog. We have this new API called the Notifications API that allows you to send a message to your users from the app. Now this is an important point. Before, the only mechanism you really had to get in touch with your users was email, which can be quite invasive and lots of people don't like it. Now you can use your app to get in touch with your users through the same notification channel as we have for user-to-user. It's really straightforward. You do one simple post request and with a few parameters. But the important thing to note here is you require an app access token. Up until now, we've only talked about user access tokens. This is a token that's given to a user for your app to do things on behalf of. But obviously, you don't want users sending messages on behalf of your app, so you need an app access token, which gives you different rights. And also, it's important to note, don't spam your users, because we now have this method of turning them off. So if you send too many notifications, users can get rid of them. So how do you get the app access token that we need to send these notifications? It's really straightforward as well. There's a graph endpoint. It's graph.facebook.com/OAuth/access token. You pass in the client ID and secret, which you get given when you've created an app in the developer app, which you saw Stefan and Connor mention at the very start. You add an extra parameter, grant type is client credentials, and you're returned your app access ID. That sounds a bit complex, but it's really straightforward. So let's do a demo, and I'll show you exactly how it works. Okay, so I'm in the developer app here for FriendSmash, and there's this handy button on the left here that will launch the Graph API Explorer. So here I am with FriendSmash, and this is my user access token that's in the context of FriendSmash. But I don't want a user access token, I want an app access token. Now, we have this handy tool to get a hold of one, and here I can grab the FriendSmash access token. So if I grab it back into the Explorer, there's a post request, and it goes to a user's ID. So mine is, I happen to know mine because I've been doing this a while, /notifications. And I add the field, which is the message. So I'll say, hello world hack Moscow. Hit submit, and it's come back saying it's correct. Now if we go through to my timeline, you can immediately see there is the message. So this is a great way of saying to your players, come back, there's a new tournament on, or something like that. Okay, great. Can I go back to the slides? Thanks. Okay, so that's requests and notifications, which are a really powerful way of directing communication to a single person. Now I'd like to talk about the feed. This is a broadcast mechanism, so it posts on your timeline and will show up on your friends' news feeds. Feed is even more simple, so let's dive in. You pop up the feed dialog in the same way, basically, as the request dialog. Slightly different method, it's the method feed rather than app request, but it works in the same way. You can add a caption, a name, and a link, and the box shows up, looks like this. It allows a custom message from the user so that they can display that on their timeline. Once again, on mobile, works in pretty much exactly the same way. You need the same parameters, and this time you launch the dialog method with the parameter feed rather than app requests, and you get the same experience. So, really straightforward. Let's have a demo. So I'm now in Xcode. Cool. And there's another method here, which is sendBrag. So you can see I'm just going to create the same dictionary of parameters that I just mentioned, a name, a caption. I just smashed X number of friends, and then a picture. And then I'm going to pop the feed dialog. So let's run this. We'll have one more go at this game. Smash my friend Will this time. And oh, I hit exhibit. Game over. Hit brag, and that code will be executed. And this is the new iOS 6 native feed dialog. So this is faster than the old web-based dialogues. Looks really slick. It's great. So if I hit post, that's all it takes. Sent to Facebook, shared on my timeline. So if we now go and look at this test user's timeline, Elliot, and we refresh, there's the message right there. And friends can immediately start interacting with that message, like it, comment on it, etc. It's a really great way of broadcasting to a lot of people at once that you've done something great in a game. Okay, back to the slides. So you want to do this at times in your game when it makes sense for people to share. So you want to pick interesting moments in the game where people might, users might want to share content with their friends. This is a really good example. In The Sims, if two players have been playing together for a long time and they woohoo, you get a message pop up. You can share this with your friends. And it's not particularly classy, but people like sharing this. So just think about when you're making a game, what are the things in the game that your users might want to share? And at that point, pop this box. Okay, so that's the feed. The final part of this talk, I'd like to talk about Open Graph. You've heard a lot about Open Graph earlier today, but there's some game-specific stuff that I want to draw your attention to. The first is the Scores API. This is an API that we've created for publishing scores to Facebook. It could not be simpler. Each player in your game publishes a single integer score, so just a whole number, and you publish to /me/scores with the integer, and that's all there is to it. One HTTP post, and Facebook does the rest. So, let me give you an example of how this works. In this game, FriendSmash, that I made, my friend Matt got a high score, and he overtook me. So just by sending that post, Facebook generated this story. Now, obviously, I can't let my friend Matt beat me at the game I made, so I go back in and try more. I get a new high score, and Facebook automatically generates this new high score post, saying my old score and my new score. And this is great. I've beaten Matt, and I feel really good about myself. But alas, a few days later, Tom comes along and beats both of us, and Facebook generates this story for us. So I, as a developer, have had to do no work for this distribution. I just do one HTTP post, and Facebook does the rest. And this is a great distribution on timelines, and it just looks good. It shows up in a number of places. Also on my recent activity log, you can see it says there that I passed Colin's high score. So really straightforward. The great thing about the graph, and you've seen this earlier today, is not only can you publish to it, you can read from it. So this is a really simple way of creating a leaderboard within your game. You do a GET request to / the app ID, so this is your app ID, / scores, and then provide the user's access token, and you get returned to you a customized social leaderboard for that player. So I don't know about you if you've got any old Xbox games, but if I play an old game after a few years and I go and look at the high score table and now I'm 40,000th or something, there's not a lot of incentive for me to try and better that score because I don't know all the people above me. But if the leaderboard is social and these people are my friends, then I'm much more inclined to go and try and beat them. And this is a really quick and easy way to achieve that. Also, a common use case we see is weekly tournaments. So this is a tournament in a game that lasts a week, and then at the end of the week, we reset the scores and you start again. And this is a great way of re-engaging people week after week. And to do this, you need to reset the scores so that, after a week, everyone's score is back to 0 and we start again. We do this through the Scores API, really simple, HTTP delete request, and you provide the app ID and the app access token. Obviously, you don't want a user doing this for everyone, so you do it on behalf of your app, and all the scores are deleted, set fresh for next week. That's scores, and lastly, there's achievements. You've probably seen achievements in Xbox or on PS3, and we have them on Facebook. These are badges that your players can earn in the game that show up on their timeline and look great, things to show off. Achievements are defined as open graph objects on the web, and you've seen open graph objects being defined earlier. Achievements are exactly the same. You need a HTTP place, somewhere to put them on the internet. The only extra parameter I'd like to draw your attention to is this games points one. You get 1,000 points to distribute with the achievements within your game. So difficult achievements, you want to give more points. Easier achievements, you give less points. And Facebook will change the distribution of those stories based upon how good the achievement is. So you define one of those objects on the web. You give it a name and a description, the URL that you've seen before, and an image. And then you need to tell Facebook about them. So we have this endpoint that allows you to register the achievement. It's pretty straightforward. Again, app ID, you provide the achievement object, you need the app access token, and that's done. Once Facebook knows about it, your users can then earn them in the game. This is pretty similar to the Scores API in that you just post with the achievement name and user access token, and Facebook generates these stories automatically. Here you can see I got a 3 smash bonus in the game. That's when if 3 players overlap, 3 friends overlap at the same time, and I hit them, I get a big explosion and I get this achievement. And it looks great, it shows up on my timeline, and I'm kind of proud of it. Another achievement, I scored 50 points in the game. You heard earlier about defining custom actions and objects that define interesting mechanics within your app. The same thing is true for games. Don't just stop at scores and achievements. If something interesting happens in your game, map it on the open graph and you'll see great distribution. For example, Marvel use their characters, which have great recognition with fans. Fans really love these characters. So when you defeat a boss within the game, it shows one of these stories. Has the character's name, has their picture, and people like interacting with this sort of thing. In the game Song Pop, which I talked about at the start, the actions and the objects are by their nature music. Everyone likes, is interested in music. And so the objects that show up are songs. You click this and you get to interact with the song, get to hear it, etc. This is a really great way of driving distribution. Come on, clicker. Okay, so they're the 3 main social mechanics that we use within games to invite new players into the game, to engage them so they keep playing the game longer, and to re-engage them, to bring them back if they've gone stale. All of the stuff that you've seen today is open source. You can download it, use it as boilerplate. It's on our GitHub FB samples page. We have a web-based game called Critical Mass, which has all this stuff built in, and the iOS Friend Smash game, which I built, so please come and see me if you have any questions about it. And with that, I think I am done.
And this time, I'm actually